So everybody out there will be used to hearing stories about the delays in children accessing scoliosis. Healthcare intervention and surgery in this country, it's been a long-running open sore for so many people, and people will remember as well the promises made by Simon Harris in this regard. And every now and then within this, a story emerges or something happens that causes us all to stop in our tracks. And that would have happened recently with the story of the passing of Harvey Morrison, who quite literally spent years waiting on acute surgical intervention, and he died aged 9. And his dad Stephen is with me in studio. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. I know this can't be easy, it probably never will be, to talk about this type of stuff. Before we get into any of the issues around the scoliosis and surgery and delays and everything else, just tell me a little bit about Harvey.
So Harvey was like a regular kid, you know what I mean? He was a boisterous young boy. We always described him as our easy child, despite all his medical complications and stuff like that. He was just a normal child going through his normal development, and yeah, like he'd burst into a room. Do you know what I mean? He was always wanted to be seen, to be noticed. And yeah, he was just loved. He was kind of a kid that liked living life in the fast lane, you know.
What was he into?
Lots of things, Paw Patrol, anything to do with speed in his wheelchair. He was, do you know what I mean? Like, he was very good with his wheelchair use. Loved music, so loved the Beatles, liked Oasis, that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, he was big into his music. Even at school, he'd play with instruments and stuff like that as well.
So was he diagnosed immediately as soon as he was born, or would it manifest later? Okay, immediate.
His scoliosis would have been picked up when he was in utero.
Oh,
so
right,
it was picked up quite early. We didn't first hear about his scoliosis being a problem until he was about 2 years of age. Didn't know what it was. When he was in Temple Street, he was under a consultant who was purely for feet, because a lot of children that were born with spina bifida have a thing called clubfoot, and they correct that. So there was no spinal consultant at the time that Harvey was under, and we didn't hear about his scoliosis until he was about 2 years.
And is that because there was that an oversight now looking back, or was it that they thought sometimes I know kids can grow out of it, essentially they'll straighten up a bit?
Yeah, I genuinely don't know if it was an oversight. At the time that we knew, it was the consultant Conor Green who had diagnosed him with it, and at that time he said it was a life or death situation for Harvey to control his scoliosis.
At that age.
So there was at that time they were considering doing a thing called a halo gravity traction. Halo gravity traction it's a very archaic looking system, but it's a wheelchair, and then basically you get a kind of a crown that goes around here, and you basically use weights to basically pull the thing up, and he wanted to do that for long-term home use until Harvey was an adult. And that's something that we weren't comfortable with. Do you know what I mean? I didn't think it was something that was doable, and I don't think, like, to do something like that, you would need nursing staff at your house at all times. Yeah.
Your kid would be in a version of the rack every day, essentially. Their spine being stretched and straightened.
Yeah, it'd be a very complex thing to work around, you know.
So when he's 2 years old and a consultant suddenly says, "Oh, this is a life and death situation that you're facing," what's that like?
You go and, like, it's a fearful thing. Do you know what I mean? You really are. You're scared. You're relying on the system to make sure that he gets everything that he wants. Now, with kids like Harvey, you've got so many other different complications as well with spina bifida and that. And, you know, this was one thing that it was just always in the back of our heads that this could really hurt him. At that point, he'd already developed early onset chest wall disease, which is basically where his ribs started to crush one of his lungs.
Yeah. And when he was diagnosed then, were ye aware at that time, 7 years ago it would have been, of all the issues around, you know, scoliosis and spina bifida and other delays accessing treatment? You know, it was already out there in the zeitgeist, but I guess if it doesn't affect you, a lot of people don't pay attention to it.
Yeah. And like at that time, we kind of, you know, So this would have been kind of 2018, and we hadn't really fully engaged in the scoliosis services end of things. It was just, this is kind of what it is. We need to get him to a particular point that he can have his scoliosis fixed, or corrected in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And then, over that time, there's been many things that have went wrong in the scoliosis services. Like we're talking about this for a decade now, almost. You know what I mean? It's been a long time, and there doesn't seem to be any change in that system.
You take it for granted, don't you? What you just said there, that you get a diagnosis and then you do what you need to do to get to the point that you fix the problem.
Yeah, and it's like all you're watching is the deterioration. Do you know what I mean? And you come in to see your yearly clinic or how often you're being seen, and it's like, okay, we'll push on and we'll wait till we get to this point, But then at the same time, there's information out there that's like, this can't go beyond a certain point. So like you've got like the international standard is like 45 degrees. You don't let it get over that.
Yeah.
By the time Harvey got his surgery, he was 130 degrees. And that's anything over 100 is life threatening.
And how conscious were you and Gillian then throughout this of those, points of no return that you were getting closer to?
I thought he was going to kill my son. I thought it was going to kill him. We had regular ambulance trips into hospital. That was the norm. We spent 3 Christmases in hospital because of pneumonia, because that lung, he didn't have the capacity to cough up, so he'd get an infection inside in the lung, and it was ICU stays. I've lost count of how many times I've slept on the floor of Temple Street. It's a continuous cycle. And it was the norm. I was lucky that I had work that would support me when these kind of things were happening, but it would regularly going in for week stays, 2 week stays. So it took a lot on our family, a toll on our family,
But such an emotional toll. Every time I guess he's going in, you're thinking, in reality, he might not come back out.
That's it. Like, there's been a few times that I was preparing myself to tell Gillian, that this is the worst I've ever seen him. And, I don't know. You have to mentally prepare yourself for that.
Would you think, and when you say mentally prepare yourself, would you imagine the conversation you were going to, would you imagine exactly how you're going to tell her that Harvey had died?
Yeah.
God. There's people all over the country who listening to this, Stephen, and they're touching wood and thinking, but for the grace of God, go I, me included. This is continually happening, as you say, over the period from age 2 to up until recently. And in tandem with kind of managing all of that, tell me then about the advocacy or the campaigning you guys are doing in the background, or the pressure you're trying to put on the HSE or Children's Health Ireland to actually get him the healthcare he needs.
I suppose there was a time when a bunch of parents had met up, Una and Amanda Kitely. Una and Amanda, who were part. We decided that we were going to get or start to do a bit of advocacy for these kids. And at the start, it was very much about local services. We didn't really see a problem at the time with the health service. And then there was a very particular time where things just started to fall apart, within spina bifida and scoliosis care. And there was just things happening that we were concerned about, that we were hearing stories from families. And then we had our own situation at the time as well. But when things really kind of, I suppose, got the attention of the whole country was when when me and Gillian put up a video of Harvey struggling to breathe, one of the times when he had pneumonia. And yeah, it was, people were horrified by it, and that was a regular occurrence for us.
But did that lead to anything happening?
No. If anything, I feel like the health service had gotten worse since then, and the things in Temple Street had got worse. Like, we have yearly clinics that aren't being done. They're supposed to be done. That is the standard for kids with spina bifida, and it's not happening. Some of them are being pushed out 18 months. I think our longest one, was 2 years, close to 2 years before they seen him. And it's not just scoliosis care.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not just the orthopedics. There's problems in urology, do you know, where kids aren't getting timely access to care as well. So there's a lot of issues across the board.
Did you just assume that if you applied enough pressure, something would happen, that they would have to do something?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And then what? That just ebbs away over time?
Yeah, I think so. I think the pressure kind of builds up for a little bit, and then it seems to fizzle out. Do you know what I mean? But I think now, nearly every single week, we hear something horrifying coming out of CHI. Do you know, like every single week there's some sort of legal case and there's a problem there, do you know? And I think there's a time where government has to really step in. Like, we've got a massive investment in the new children's hospital.
Yeah.
Like a massive public investment that we've all paid for. And if there's really strong concerns, if you've got loads of different groups of parents coming forward and going, there's a serious problem here, that has to be acted on. Do you know what I mean? We can't bring these problems to this new facility. That would be a disaster waiting to happen. The only reason why people like us see it is because we're in the system for so long.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a lot different for some parents who will go in, their child might break a leg, they might break an arm, they get treated very well.
Yeah.
They go home and they think, isn't Temple Street great? Do you know, but when you're consistently there, you start to see those little cracks. And, do you know, with Harvey, we could see so many different cracks. Like, I would say 60% of his care was really, really poor. You know, very poor. You know, and that was across the board. You know, we were never listened to when we had problems. We were ignored on so many different issues.
Yeah.
And issues that I can't really go into, but there was some serious concerns there.
I can't, I can't for a moment imagine what you went through, and I'm lucky in that regard. But people die every day, and children die every day, and it's not preventable. You know, with the best medical intervention in the world, with the best will in the world, there's nothing you can do about it, and it's awful, but it's reality. But you know, you're dealing with the death of a child, and it wasn't one of those situations. I mean, the surgery that he needed was not rocket science. It was not new surgery. It's surgery that in some shape or form it's developed, obviously, but it's been around for decades. You know, surgical intervention for people with scoliosis or spina bifida. And you know, if we had a well-functioning health system, it's the surgery that Harvey should have gotten when he was an infant.
Yeah. I think, like, there was so many times for intervention to take place and it didn't happen. Do you know? Like, he waited on that scoliosis list for 33 months and then he was taken off that list. We had certain surgeons in the system tell us that he wasn't strong enough for that surgery, but then we had 3 other surgeons who told us he should have that surgery. Do you know what I mean? That's do you know, and then he was taken off the list, and those questions have never been answered of why he was taken off that list. Do you know, that doesn't make sense to us. And then, do you know, just, yeah, it's...
What was his quality of life like through all of this?
For the most part, it was really good.
Yeah.
He enjoyed life. Do you know what I mean? He was, as I said, he was a young boy, and then like a young normal child.
Yeah.
With his medical complications, but his quality of life in the last, over those 33 months, was horrendous.
Really?
Yeah, it was really, really bad. Like, the pain he'd go through, putting him on the floor to. Do you know what I mean? Because he was just getting so tired. He had weight reduction, like he was losing a shocking amount of weight. And he just kept getting pneumonia. And we kept bringing him in, and it was just, okay, we'll treat him. And then it was home time, do you know?
Yeah.
And it was horrible for us to watch. It was horrible for a family. And I think it's, when you're living it, it's pretty bad. But, like, I think when you tell people what it's like, and they really don't kind of believe that you're telling them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's like this big, like, I remember telling lots of friends about things that have happened in Temple Street, and they looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
They would be like, that doesn't happen in our healthcare system. And it's like, it does. Do you know?
Was there a moment over those 33 months where Where there was ever any breathing room for you guys, or is it just constant all day, every day? Was there any ever breathing room in that time?
No.
This was just constant.
Yeah, like we haven't had a family holiday in, 7 years?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you'd always fear about things like, even we cancelled our wedding because Harvey, we were planning on having quite a large wedding. And we were like, well, Harvey could get sick and we could lose all that money, do you know? So we decided that we were just going to elope, the two of us. Missing holidays, missing Christmas. Do you know what I mean? These are all really important things throughout a child's life. And I feel like they were stolen from us. Do you know? I really do. Like, there should have been a lot more intervention into Harvey's care a lot sooner.
How are you guys doing now?
We're in autopilot mode at the moment. Genuinely, like, we're so angry with what happened. And we just don't want to see any other kids go through the same thing. Our families go through the same thing. And we're seeing it, like, even in this week, we've seen one young fella from Galway who's now inoperable, do you know? And it's like this is going to continue to get worse unless government steps in. And the HSE. I genuinely think CHI needs to be taken over by the HSE.
Yeah. You know, you said earlier, you made the point, it's so against the natural order of things, you know, for a parent to outlive their child in any circumstance. But I'm just conscious with you guys as well that, you know, as you said, it's all consuming. It's all you ever dealt with. It's all you're thinking about all the time is dealing with Harvey. So it just becomes so much part of your identity. You know, it's the only part of your identity really for all of that time. And all that's gone too.
Yeah. Well, we do have another daughter who does have a disability as well. So she's got a cardiac condition. But her care, and this is something that I think has been quite unique in our situation, is we're within CHI, we have Harvey's care, which has been absolutely atrocious. And then we have Lila's care in the cardiac system, which has been probably the best we've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, it's like top level care. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've never had an issue with that system. So I think it's like, you know, a lot of people might look at us parents and go, oh, well, they're just, do you know what I mean? They're just, do you know what I mean? A bit of a nuisance and stuff like that. And it's like, we've seen it. I'm not just giving out because...
You've seen how it can work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen how the health system can work, and like and
how transformative it can be when it works.
Absolutely. And like, even Lila's cardiac team were the only people who contacted us when Harvey passed away. Do you know, no one from CHI contacted us.
So Lila's cardiac team
contacted us. No one from Temple Street had contacted us until we called it out online, and then all of a sudden cards came through the door, and a letter from Lucy Nugent, CEO.
But I know this is maybe a slightly glass half empty way of looking at things, and maybe you don't look at it this way. The fact that Lila's gotten such great care, it makes it worse what happened to Harvey.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. Do you know, and I don't understand how you can have that in a health system where some care is good, some care is bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or you've got loads of different departments that are hemorrhaging, do you know what I mean, that are really struggling, and then you have one that's absolutely fine. Do you know, is it an investment thing? Is there, do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how these things work in the background.
How's Gillian?
She's struggling. Yeah, she's struggling a lot with everything that's gone on.
Yeah.
Do you know? We haven't got to grieve yet. You know, I haven't stepped foot in Harvey's room. You know, so we are struggling, but we're determined to make sure that this stops now.
Is that a conscious decision that you're putting off grieving?
Oh yeah.
Because
I want to see action. I feel like my son was failed drastically and needs to be remembered in a positive light.
Yeah.
You know, something needs to change here. And that needs to happen very soon. And government, I think, needs to step in.
Do you think there's part of you that's putting off grieving because you just can't face the reality of it? Because on some level, you know how awful it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a horrible situation. I don't think it's ever going to leave me. Do you know, what I had to watch my son go throughout his whole life and then in his final hours was horrific. Do you know, and that's all I can see at the moment is what his last hours. I can't see the happy times. All I can see is the horrific ending to his life.